All right, welcome back to Culinary Connections Distribution Dialogues, brought to you by Navarro Culinary Connections. I've got Brent Erenwert with me from Houston, Texas. For those of you that don't know, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. It still is where my mom and dad live, or my stepdad rather. My sister is in Tyler. My brother is in Austin. Know it well. Huge fan of Tex-Mex. My first job was at Palazzo's off Westheimer, over by House of Pies. Then I went and worked at South Wells on San Felipe and Fountain View. So it is still a very, Houston is near and dear to my heart, and was back around Thanksgiving and saw Brothers produce trucks everywhere I went, which I think as a distributor is music to your ears, right? I'm sure you get plenty of friends and family texts of a picture of a truck passing by. I just saw your truck, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're everywhere.
My favorite I always get a picture of a different truck, and because a lot of people don't know, and I may have shook up the industry when I did this, but I've got 225 different truck designs on the road.
Unbelievable,
I'm
225.
different ones, so I'm constantly changing the wraps. It's kind of like I started doing this in 2015 with our logo change. I went to a more round logo. I tried to really focus on getting the name out, just getting the name and the brand out there and creating a brand and kind of separating it out from business because companies die and brands last forever. And Coca-Cola, for instance, we can say they're boring and this and that, but so many different products a lot of people don't know they own that come back. And one that always comes to mind is I remember I'm a couple of years older than you. I don't want to reveal my age, but I, a lot of people say I could be like a LeBron James in this industry. I'm not as old as people think, but I've been in it a long time. And so Fresca is something that comes to mind that came back amongst this sparkling water craze. And that was a dead brand. But again, brands don't die. Coke resurrected that brand, and you see that. So one of the things I wanted to do is we had a lot of trucks, but if people aren't always seeing the same truck, like, damn, that company's got a lot of trucks. But so it kind of goes hand in hand. So I always enjoy when I get pictures of people's trucks or like when I saw Governor Abbott last week, hey, I saw one of your trucks the other day. I mean, they stand out, and it just makes me feel good when I see that.
That's awesome. Now
And when I hear that.
you've been in the industry for a while. Talk a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are?
So our company, I guess I'll have to reveal my age here, unfortunately, if I go back to this journey. um, I was born in 1980. Our company started in 1979. My family got into produce from coming over from the Holocaust. My grandfather was sent to Ellis Island, then down to Houston, peddled bananas up and down Main Street. That was the introduction to produce in our family. My father was working at a grocery store, and one of the produce managers had a side institutional food service route that he wanted to get rid of. And that route, combined with money that he got from getting hit by a car at 7 years old, became the foundation of the Brothers Produce brand. And the reason that brothers are in the name is he had some other siblings, and I won't go into family. Family could be a whole nother topic on just family business and whatnot. But lo and behold, some of these other brothers have other companies and whatnot, and the family's heavily involved in produce. And that became the foundation of Brothers Produce. And I started working, as a little kid. Fortunately, it's a different work environment back then than it is today. We actually liked to work back then. We didn't have the internet. I came on. I was kind of getting all over the place, but so when I started full time in 1998, coming out of high school, I took a year off of school. Then I went to a JUCO. I started the way every person I believe should start in a family business. I started in the warehouse as a kid. Then I went to a driver, customer service. I did accounting. I did sales. I did buying. I wish I would have done buying before sales because I don't think you can sell until you learn how to make the buy. That's the only thing I think I should have done different. Eventually became VP of the company. I became CEO in 2014, and then we kind of we did that rebrand in 15, and I went into like a chief innovation officer for a little while just to kind of find the direction of our company, diversify the company. some and get some out of food service, get into more retail, cold storage, built the Houston cold storage brand. And, today we're in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, distribution centers we have, and we go all the way into Oklahoma, Mississippi, Louisiana, and 225 trucks. So
Gosh, all
we
this
put,
Houston?
well, no, we have DCs in Dallas, DC, and Houston, cross stock in San Antonio, and probably don't want to put a cat out of the bag, but probably have cross stock in Louisiana here pretty soon. Maybe that'd be your breaking news on this. Again,
No,
just trying to figure out that piece.
that's awesome.
But
Congrats.
you got to keep, and unfortunately, in this world, if you're not growing, you're dying. So we have to keep growing. And one of my biggest challenges every day is to continually diversify while growing. So that way, I look at there's four wheels on the car. You've got food service, you've got schools, you got cold storage, you got retail, and there's always a shaky wheel on the car. Whether what it is, school goes out, food service pops. Bad weather hits, food service dies, retail is good. So you have to have four wheels on the car, or you can get in trouble with your business. And that's just like in anything in investing, diversification.
Well, then you also have that. I think unique to the industry is the ability to provide advertising revenue through the trucks. That's something that you started. How many of those do you have on the road that are different?
So I've got I believe four or five now, but I've got some contracts in the works per se for about another 30 to 40 that you'll start seeing roll out with various. I have a lot of customers call me on these, but unfortunately, I can't back another brand up to another brand's restaurant. It'll just cause some issues. But that doesn't mean I can't maybe shift that customer to somebody else who would do it. I like to be an innovator. I would say if I'm the smartest person in a room, it's a dumb room. So I'd like to surround myself with smart people. And I believe that mobile ads are the future. I believe the digital ad space is crowded. So I've been trying to push a lot of other revenue streams, especially in this landscape of the economy we're in now, where everybody's margins are probably suffering. And I think that that's just dead space. And if you have a powerful brand, I think a lot of people want to latch onto that brand to be a part of it.
So one of the things you talked about was the food service channel, and in produce, that food service channel can be mixed between, what I think you would classify as your independent, category, and then your contractual business. And sometimes that contractual can be really wobbly, right? You could get a
Oh yeah.
phone call one day and say, "Hey, you just lost 30 stores," and that was a critical piece, and it just came on the heels of, well, shoot, now it's summertime, and okay, now we're down 20% versus where we thought. How do you try to? It's part of that diversification to retail and to your ad space different, and then also innovation, right? As you as a distributor, how are you continuing to innovate who you are and the identity? Because as you said, your grandfather was slinging bananas on Main Street, right? It started
Yeah.
just bananas, and then it went to now you have kind of the full produce gamut.
Yeah, so in order to innovate, also you have to always be around surrounding, or I guess in sync with your surroundings and open to listening to creative ideas, and just not operate, just not being in this box of laser vision focus. And one of the things I always do is somebody, you and I talked about cholera, and people like that come to me, then, I listen to all those things and continue. Maybe it's not for me, maybe it is, but a lot of people just say, call up, I didn't say that. And they just put the phone down. To me, my biggest retail customer I do started through flower distribution. How many people would have taken on flower distribution? But see, I saw that as an opportunity. So you have to see some of these as a gateway drug to something different. Just because it's not in your box doesn't mean you can't find a way to fit it in the square. And honestly, if you're living, what do they say? You got to think outside the box. But if you think outside the box, you're kind of admitting that there's a box there. I don't have a box in my world. I mean, I'll do anything. One of the things my favorite line was Dr. Seuss's, in order to stand out, you got to be different. And that's why on my trucks, my favorite ones that people send me, and they think it's my dog on these trucks, and it's not my dog. But I've got dogs on the trucks. I got cats. I got cowboys. I've got just I got right here on here's one of the things here. I make these trucks and I give them to the charities. This is one for Alex Bregman. I've got magic mushrooms on my trucks. You do these things that we're all selling produce, and my produce isn't better than the guy next door's produce. I'm a cold storage logistic company that carries produce, so I have to draw that attention to them. And in order to do that, you have to be different. And that's where it goes back to with your innovation. My product offering, I do a lot of proteins now. That's been a big growth segment for me. And I'm not in the protein business. I'm in the cold storage logistic business. So I try to find holes in the supply chain where I can help curve, a customer's needs and bring them value.
It's amazing. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think you have to be curious, right? And I've
Yeah.
talked to people about you should always take a meeting, right? It could be a 15-minute meeting, but you never know where that could lead, right? You took the flower meeting as like hey, I'll listen, right? And because of that, it turned into you having cantaloupe or lemon or whatever the other ancillary business that you have now.
Obviously, that business fell to me because it was kind of maybe it was someone's trash became someone else's treasure, and it fell to me because nobody wanted to do it. And I jumped on that ball and ran it to the end zone. And next thing it's really exploded our retail growth. And you just, your network is your net worth is your network. And that's all. That's why you got to take all those calls because, I mean, look at you and I's first call. How many people, you just mentioned two places that you worked at in Houston that we've got 5,000 customers. I don't know if we sell Palazzos or Southwells anymore, but I know Brian at Southwells. I remember when I was a kid. Um, that was I was a delivery driver back then, and that's just how your network works. I get calls all day long from headhunters, not trying to hire me, just seeing who I know that somewhere else that I can connect them with, and that's what I really enjoy. I'm not in the produce business. I'm in the people business.
Yeah, it's I'm a Ole Miss grad right here,
Oh
and
yeah.
one of the things we kind of joke about, historically it's not known to be the most uh, prestigious academia school out there. I joke and say it's the Harvard of the South, and people kind of laugh about
I went to Harvard on Beamer. That's San Jacinto. I started Harvard on Beamer, which was San Jack.
that. We would joke and say it's not the hands you shake, it's the grades you or not the grades you make, it's the hands you shake, and I believe that to be true. You're really one contact away from your next opportunity. This wasn't in my question bank for you. I think we're both pretty active on LinkedIn. It's been an unbelievable tool for me to be able to
Yeah.
connect with people from all over the globe. For anybody that's not actively using it, specifically in food service, how's it impacted you? Why do you use it? Why do you find value in it?
So first of all, LinkedIn in 2011, I created a social network for the produce industry called Produce Universe that solely was built because of the connections. LinkedIn exploded that network. I sold it in 2013. It's since been it seized. The Packer bought it and they killed it because they tried to create a revenue stream out of it instead of seeing that it was a fabulous just marketing tool and they could have layered their ads into it. And maybe I'll bring it back, maybe I won't. We'll see. But LinkedIn allows you to find people that you not necessarily could get to. I I find a lot of value in just reading other people's things on LinkedIn. I've curved a lot of the way I've done content over the years, less about my company, more about just personal journeys and how to be a you know, better father to your kids, better husband to your wife, all by being a better leader for your employees and just a lot of people, this people can find me exhausting and they can judge me because a lot of times I tell it like it is. We're not in a rainbow and unicorn industry. The supply chain is nasty. It's dirty in the trenches. And I don't, you and I talked about pink pineapples last week. Sometimes I like to say stuff and give people constructive criticism because that might be the key to success of something is somebody finally telling it like it is. And what I like to do on LinkedIn is, give people the lay of the land and understand it because it can make us better. We're all in this fight together. I always tell people your competitors you have more in common with than you do with anybody else because they fight the same daily battles you do and they go home to the same family problems that we all do. And they have more in common with you than anybody else. So I try to talk to everybody I can and use LinkedIn as a learning tool. I don't get on any of the other social. I actually, and to this day, run all of our company's social media. And that's because I personally feel like the culture of the company is enriched in the people that do it every day. And likes and, follows do not equal dollars. They do not equal votes. You have a beautiful picture doesn't tell the story of what the company does. So I feel the social media has to be controlled from the people that are in the actual company day in and day out. And I think the biggest failure that companies do in social media is they allow other companies to market their business and they don't have an idea of what they do on a day-to-day basis, who their customer is, and what the message is they're trying to get across.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, no knock on an agency. I think agencies have a place in the world of marketing, and specific to food service distribution. My belief is we're headed into a world that is, every distribution company should have an agency mindset. They should be producing content, sharing the story of the driver, right? Like, hey, Ted's been here for 21 years. He's been a critical part of who we are. This is Becky in accounting. This is whoever, right? It's the story of your personality, your identity, and you have to live in the business to be able to share that story.
Correct. So the story, and I always credit Landry's for this. Landry's has bought so many brands over the years, but they always leave the story of whatever brand they buy on the back of that menu because the story is what gets people in the door and the service is what brings them back. And it's just so vital to, our brand. I mean, one day if we ever sell off, I hope the story remains because the story is why the brand was built.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you talked about, look, we just sell produce. At the end of the day, you have Man Packing, Sunkiss, TNA, you name the labels that exist. There's so many other people that could carry that same label, but why are they coming to you? It's that trust, your responsiveness, your ability to serve the customer, right? Because
Yeah.
it is a nasty world. Most people don't really understand people that listen to this are in distribution, probably for the most part. You understand that there's no distribution company that has a 100% fill rate that's going to be 100% right on quality every time. You have 250 trucks. Do you know how many cases you're moving every day? And, like, I try to remind customers produce is grown, it's not manufactured, right? And on the pallet, you could have heavyweight. You think about the citrus or Driscoll berries, we would get complaints from customers, oh, my berries are moldy. Well, when you lift up the Driscoll label where they have the sticker and an 8 pound flat, there's weight that goes to the middle that crushes one of the berries, which
Yeah.
creates moisture, which creates mold. And then, okay, well, can we get a picture of what the, okay, well, it was like four. Well, do you need credit on the whole case, or can
Yeah.
we, it's a challenge, and you're only as good as your last delivery. And people are willing to. I certainly saw it a lot during COVID when people were having supply chain issues where you put the same order in with me and then with Fresh Point with somebody else, and whoever got there first is going to who's going to get the order, and then
Yeah.
you're getting you're getting the rejection. Oh, they kicked the load, for whatever reason, and you're like, well, that sucks. You know, I can't afford to lose the customer because I really believe in the long term value, but it's a distribution is definitely tough, and the financial side of it, where you're exchanging your product to be paid 20, 30, who knows when you're going to get paid on that, but you're kind of a bank.
Oh yeah, it's and you hit a lot of good points, and I like that you hit you're only as good as your last delivery, because in my case, I say that all the time, and sometimes we have six chances a week to mess up, and you are only as good, and that's why there has to be partnerships, and there has to be a big understanding that the biggest enemy in this business is Mother Nature. And we don't know what and honestly the food channel and or the food network and things like that have really hurt the industry's expectations, and Amazon's brought a thing to this world of this sense of urgency. So one of the things that I've begun to do to differentiate our brand is I go and do customer service. I posted about this the other day. I go with my customer service team now and I start teaching them the difference between certain products because they're just taking orders. And if I can teach them what the difference between a 165 lemon and a 115 is, or a green leaf fillet and a green leaf, or a Driscoll strawberry, and I started hearing all these. I'm very enriched in the customer service aspect of our business because I'm all about the experience and about the perception of our brand. I'm a brand protector. And yes, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But what I try to do is educate our team so they can understand how to walk that customer off the ledge and say, hey, you know what? Like, this is what's going on right now, and this is why the asparagus is really small because of these storms. So I try to educate them, and it's been an eye-opening experience for the customer service that they really appreciated. And my buyers have been a part of this, and we just break down categories now each week. And like I said, it's been really good for helping to get a better experience again to the customers because experience is everything, and they just want to know that we care. And it's been able to deflect a lot of problems from escalating. It's been able to eliminate hot shots. We talked about last week the difference between Tuscan Mix and Harvest Blend and all the baby lettuces and how it's all about the application. And you mentioned you went to Ole Miss. I went to University of Houston Hotel Restaurant Management. I did not graduate because of the fact that I was needed at this business. I was working here and going there at the same time. They've actually since, tried to offer me to come back and let me finish that degree. Maybe I'll do that at some point. I do still actually do some lectures over there in various sectors of the school and purchasing. I do some food safety courses. It's kind of weird because when I was in school there, all the food safety was about meat and proteins and different things. And now we've kind of learned that produce is what's basically causing all the recalls because of water sources and whatnot. So that's been a really fun experience is I've been able to help educate the leaders of tomorrow to see how they can be better customers and also to show them that just because you have that degree, walk over to my side and you don't have to be, working when other people are at leisure because the supply chain needs good people.
Yeah, I think customer service is key. Communication to the customer, as we see in these corporate contracts, right? You want a red ripe tomato year round, and the reality is really hard to deliver that red
Hmm.
ripe tomato, right? You're going to have whiteness in it, or there's a freeze came, right? Like I live in Colorado. Local season, and I just came back from Mardi Gras, where you're starting to see in Louisiana, strawberries become, hey, it's
Hammond.
starting to it's just starting to come. Well, we're not going to see a local strawberry in Colorado until like July,
Yeah.
and now we're about to get into the most Instagram time of year for chefs, which is fiddleheads, ramps, morels. What else goes into that mix? Fiddles, ramps, morels, spring peas, and favas. Those are like the everybody wants first to market. And it's like, okay, you got a forager in Oregon that found 10 pounds, and one chef got access to them, and now the expectation or you're judged on, wait, what do you mean you can't get these? Well, like we still have scale and food safety to worry about. And, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for the produce industry that other sides of distribution, whether you're seafood or you're a gourmet company, that you're not faced with is most of our stuff is grown in Yuma, Salinas, right? And you're in a really good part of the world for accessibility in Mexico. And, there's a lot that comes from Mexico on the citrus, avo side, peppers side of it. But freight becomes really, really challenging in other parts of the U.S. You have volumetrics that go into it, right? I mean, you think you got
Hmm.
red onion, yellow onion, jumbos. How many pallet spaces you have to have in a warehouse, how many turns you're doing. And I've been on the seafood side too, where it's like I've got one slot for halibut, and it's whole fish, and then we cut the whole fish into fillet or portion or whatever you have. For the onion category, spring onion, green onion, you got how much square footage you have to actually make an impact. It's I think people forget about the produce, and it's why you know, a lot of broadliners, in my opinion, aren't diversified. There's broadliners here in Colorado that English cukes are a special order. Tricolor bell pepper
Wow.
are a special order. And it's like, wait, what? That's a special order. That's
Yeah.
just like generic produce.
Yeah, it's it all it's all about too, we talked about corporates and the way they do things. I can't tell you how many times I've taken over a corporate account. Maybe there's a, consultant or so on it, which is a whole nother, discussion. But how many times contracts are cut that aren't feasible to the region? I've got customers that cut a domestic onion program that I've got to have $8 freight on an onion that I can be getting out of Mexico. It's because you've just got left, again, you got people in the supply chain in various areas that don't quite understand logistics. And everything around us, in front of you, the plants in the back of you, all that touch some form of logistics to get to where it is. And was it the best means of logistics or not? But a lot of people don't understand that aspect of it and how to capitalize and how much money can be saved when you line that up. And it has to fit food safety, yes. And that's the biggest challenge of local produce is I would say local produce doesn't, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just not documenting what they do. And they think there's a big investment into that. And I think that sometimes they're led down a bad path to understanding what they need to do in order to comply with the regulations. And I think it's unfortunate, but it's just where we are. I answer that question a lot when I go to the colleges and stuff because that local thing, like you're talking about, is so just hammered into their face that we got to support local, we got to do this and that. And one of the examples that I give them is, they think a company like Driscoll or Sunkist is, oh, I don't want those brands. Those are big, a big company. They don't understand. Those are cooperatives that really help the local small farmer and they help get them, guaranteed contractual business 365 days a year, whatever their growing season is. And then it's like a light goes off to understand how it all works.
Yeah, it's and you mentioned you have 5,000 customers or somewhere in that ballpark, and I'm sure it spans from convention center, hotel, country club,
Hmm.
to a small mom and pop, right? You as a distributor and your buying team, I can't go source 50 cases of heirlooms from one farm and then go to the next one and the next one. Like it just isn't. Oh, by the way, I bring that in, and then you're going to say I'm too expensive because I had to go stop at 50 different places to acquire the volume and food safety that's needed to bring, to meet the requirements of distribution. And so it's super volatile, the amount of turns. And I know that, I lived in Nashville before I moved to Denver. And our accessibility, right, to the Atlanta market or Chicago market in the event that we were out of something was within several hour drive. In Colorado, I got 8 hours to the west is Salt Lake, and 8 hours to the east is KC. Nothing north of me, and certainly nothing south of me. And so, no other distribution company here in Denver just has two extra pallets of Driscoll's. Fingers crossed that hopefully somebody dropped a ball along the way, and I'm just going to, potentially have it in case somebody's short, right? It just is. It's difficult.
It's a big challenge in the industry is, how do you handle shorts? And I always have said, in regards to Houston, Brothers Produce is like Rome. All roads kind of lead to our inventory and just how do you want to get here? I tell the broadliners this all the time. You can call up somebody else because you don't want to back up a truck to come in here, but how much are you going to pay that middle or something, man? But a lot of times, if we don't have something, it's probably not available. I'm not saying it's not out there, but if we can't, I'm probably Driscoll's biggest food service account in the state of Texas. So if Driscoll's struggling on strawberries, I'm struggling too. I guarantee you. And that's what I try to explain to all the customers is just because Kroger or HEB or Costco has it, they get first pick of the litter.
Yeah, people think Colorado is a very big organic state, right? Like it's a
Hmm.
hippie state, and we certainly moved a lot more organic produce versus Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, where we were moving a ton of conventional. But the reality is that end user still is looking for a food cost, and when you present them with organic Driscolls versus conventional Driscolls, they start scratching their head like, wait, well, number one, to your point, retail is going to get first pick of the litter on all of the organic, certainly. And so we're going to be inherently short. We're going to be more expensive. No herbicide, no pesticide. So what does that mean? You're going to have more likelihood of shorter shelf life, and all the things that create problems. Do you see in the independent category and in food service organic being relevant, picking up steam, or is it people just want fresh produce at a quality price?
So I've actually seen organic produce category fall over the years, and I think that came on with too many people getting into it. I think now the supply chain issues of the past, years, I think have contributed to costs of it. We actually, kind of going back to my buying team and various places, I don't have PO pushers. One of the big strengths of our company is I have an actual buying team. So if that contract or whoever's pushing some contract, if it's not right and cost effective, we're going to try to buck that contract as much as we can, because our job's to take care of the customer. And we can't just bring in that one pallet of a higher priced bell pepper and have a 3-pick truck instead of a 2-pick truck and risk the amount of time it gets here to fill that customer's need. So we're going to try to get them to open up their playbook a little bit. And I've been pretty successful the past few years doing that. But one of the things we've done on the buying side is a lot of people don't realize, if you go to some of these organic people, they only got a one-way street to sell. They're selling to an organic retailer, but a lot of times if the romaine market's high or celery market's high, and you call up an organic place and say, hey, what do you want to sell me a load of romaine for? And you sell a food service customer organic romaine, they're happy as a lark.
Mm-hmm.
On because they think they got a better product for the price of a conventional. And I think honestly, we probably move more organic produce conventionally than we do selling organics. And that's why but you have to have that foot in the organics to do that. Most of the organics we sell is some spring mixes, some baby spinaches, some carrots, mainly the juicing category. But I can't tell you how many times I go through the cooler and we've got organic. So, I mean, we've got a lot of romaine. I mean, that's where my buyers are really sharp, is they know how to do that.
Interesting. Yeah. It is a difficult category, and I think it's one for if you're an organic only restaurant, right? And you have to look at there's quite a few here. Um, Albert's Organics, which is owned by
That's who
UNF,
I was gonna, yeah.
right? They hold the keys to the car in that category. But if you're an independent restaurant, it's like, okay, well, your drop size $750 minimum. Okay, well, I don't need $750. So now, well, Brent, why can't you be that? Why can't you be only organic? Well, I'm not organic only. I'm when available, right? And I want to provide you
Mhm.
consistency, and I just want to be honest. And it's like, you know, I would have to tell customers, look, you're already by choosing organic only, you're making it more challenging to source, because how many times have you gotten a load that got delivered from California that was yellowing arugula that you had to kick? And so now you're 2 days, 3 days out from your next load, and the customer is pissed off because you don't have their spec that was organic only, and it was, came in bad for whatever reason. And it's like, it's not I didn't do anything. We fulfilled the request, and now we're the bad guy. And it's just, if you're going to put organic when possible, I think is a better way to menu than it is, hey, we're organic only, because so much can go wrong in supply chain that's going to, you know, cause you frustrations in putting stuff on the menu.
Yeah, and one of the things is, it's kind of like I address everything. Sometimes it's better to say no, and a lot of people don't have no in their vocabulary. And a lot of times when customers come, I've really vetted out my sales team over the years to, when new customers come to us, figure out why they're leaving where they're at, what problems they're having, because they may run into the same issues here. And sometimes it's better to say no than to fail,
I
when to
agree.
walk away.
I
And
agree.
I do that. In my side government job, I've said the same thing in regards to certain things, that not all business is good business. And you
I,
just sometimes got to say no.
we My previous life, we went through many. acquisitions of family produce companies, and you look at the mix of customer, and it's like, okay, you're serving this customer and they want an 18 count avocado, and then this customer wants a 22 count, and it's like, wait, we need to formulate, like, here's what we can do, right? And you need to choose from the menu. You don't walk into a sushi restaurant and say, well, today I'm actually feeling like Tex-Mex, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have a menu of what you're good at, and this is, you're not putting yourself in a box, as you said, right? You don't want to live in a box, but you want the best success for your team to fulfill the needs of
Yeah.
that customer. And sometimes evaluating and saying, a lot of times too, in these produce contracts for multi-unit, they're not winners. They're really just not winners. They're actually more of a pain,
Yeah.
and it's really frustrating to come out looking like the bad guy. There's a lot of people that never experience produce distribution. You're a seafood only. I'm a meat only. Kind of scratching their head like, what the hell are you? These are things I never have to go through. When you're looking at a produce contract, what are you looking at? That can lead you to say no or to say yes. What are those things?
So the first thing I look at, am I already going to that vendor or utilizing, you know, am I already, is that vendor already set up with me, and does the volume warrant another drop? That's ultimately going to be number one, because if the volume doesn't warrant the drop, then everything else goes out of the or the pick, then everything else goes out the window. It doesn't matter how good the contract is at that point, because the customer's volume, you're now creating more work for your team. Then the second thing I look at is the ceiling of the contract and what the market protection is, because everything's an insurance policy, and we know, and especially in the past couple of years, how many times and how quick this act of God is pulled. So that's the next thing I'm going to go back and see. And then the third thing that, I just got to figure out, how, if the first two boxes checked, then I need to do my homework and make sure that that's who else, how good is the company or whatever that I'm going to buy that item from? And, are they going to be a good partner for Brothers Produce?
What in the past couple of years, when you think about innovation and customer service and accessibility, differentiation, right, has made you different, Brothers today, 2024, than Brothers 2016?
I think the biggest thing is just the focus we've just really put on the customer, and the communication with them, educating them, and just trying to make sure we had the right customer, that the customers were our partners, understanding that we're going to mess up, they're going to forget to order, we're in this as a team. I saw a lot of customer relation contracts really strengthen during COVID, because there was a lot of supply chain challenges, and I dealt with a lot of the top level people. And I think that because of those times, looking back, I've really strengthened relationships because we've understand the value of each other, and why not to be like, I turned down a lot of grid buying business. I mean, you're very familiar with what grid buying is, and we've really just combed our customer base to make sure that we're dealing with customers that want to deal with us. And it's a really good relationship, because everybody's going to fail at some point. And that other side going to be there to pick them up. So when I look back at how we did things different, we didn't say no a lot back then. We didn't vet things, and we set ourselves up for failures, or maybe we robbed from Peter to pay Paul and hurt some other account because of trying to do something. And we've just really changed the landscape of how we evaluate the business we bring in. And one of the things we continue to do is, I've always been a big believer that championships are won by the bench and not the all stars. And I've got a really deep, deep bench that I love hiring people and I don't need them, and then figuring out where I'm going to put them in on the game. When a good person falls to me, I picked them up. And one of the big differences that really showed throughout COVID, because a lot of people went out, and we never laid off. We never went through all that, because we just really saw the value of depth in a company, and the depth is what also helped contribute to these strengths, to taking care of the customers and just really enhancing the customer service experience.
Yeah, it's kind of, hey, we got the bus rolling. Get on the bus, and we'll figure out where you fit, right? And you mentioned the potential going to Louisiana. You've got cross docks or DCs across the state of Texas. You got to build your bench because guess what? Your night manager is going to leave to go do something else. And what does your bench look like? And you can become a liability to yourself by not continuing to evolve and invest in your team and providing them the opportunity to scale. One of the things that I think, and you guys use Produce Pro, is that right?
Yeah, we do.
Produce Pro is something that I'm familiar with too, and um, it's a very dynamic software but it takes time to learn. If you hire a customer service agent, getting them familiar with the hotkeys and F10 and all the things that come with it, how to get to a screen. If you and I were in a room and we wanted to look at a particular thing, there's probably 20 different ways to get to that particular screen, and giving yourself the ability, and I would look and say, I really need to allow myself about a 90-day buffer from when I hire someone to when they're at least a little bit more comfortable to kind of really take those phone calls specific to customer service and just, really adding value to the customer and to the organization. So when you're busy and you can't take enough phone, that's the wrong time to hire. You really need to do it in advance, knowing that, okay, how are we going to grow, how are we preparing for the growth, instead of kind of scratching your head and putting the wrong person in the wrong position. It'll just cause frustration for everybody around.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I always say you're never going to find the right person whenever you're looking. You're not going to find, if you're going out to a bar or wherever to find your wife, you're not going to find a wife there. You're going to meet that person when you least expect it. And that's why I've always been a big believer when good people fall to me, I just pick them up. I may not need them today, I may not need them tomorrow, but I know who I'm going to need. I'm going to be able to figure out where to place them in the game. So that's why I'm always looking. And, and I always get a lot of calls, and sometimes there's different things that aren't, everything's about a culture. And I'll tell you what, I don't hire a lot of people from this industry anymore because I believe, similar to the New England Patriots, I've built a system. And you can take one of my all-stars and go throw them in another company, and they're not going to be the same all-star at that company because the system and the support that they're in at my place is what makes this whole place shine because there's no I in team.
That's incredible. I've not seen you work firsthand, but hearing you talk, I would say that there's very few CEOs out there, especially in distribution, that I'm sure you've been on a forklift recently, you've been on a truck, and you're in buyers meetings, and I mean, hell, you're running the Instagram page, right? Like you're juggling a lot. You got 250 plus trucks. I think that says a lot as an employee, right? When Brent shows up on a Saturday to go and do whatever it is, right? Like there's so many things that happen
It's
all the
so
time.
it's the things that I enjoy. I mean, that's the fun part. I was telling my customer service team last week when, one of them pulled me to the side and said, "I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this with us." And I said, "This is the things I enjoy. Like I love just interacting with all of my team and teaching them about things. It's dealing with all the other headaches and all that I mean, I'm pretty deep in the trenches. Patrick Kelly, we talked about earlier, was here for 3 days a couple of weeks ago. And he left here and he goes, "I've got a new respect for you. Like, I know now why you'll go off the grid for a couple of days. You were enriched." And I'm not a micromanager by any means. I'm one that I like to let people go make their own decisions. And then I like to watch people fail so I can say how I would have helped them. And not that my way would have been the right way, but in order to be a good leader, you have to be able to admit your mistakes and take accountability for your fails. Because if I fail, we all fail, or if somebody else makes some mistakes and fail, we all fail. It's all about jumping on. As long as we jump on that fumble and the team recovers, it's just like golf. It's not how good your good shots are; it's how good you recover from your bad ones.
Yep.
But I am involved. I can tell you, I can't tell you everything we do, but I can tell you I have a lot of, for as big as we are, and it's a good and a bad thing, I'm very close to the surface. And that's because I just like to know what's going on because things break whenever there's things going on in areas that we don't know about.
how does you and or how do you and your team evaluate the health of a customer, right? Because you always, this is specific to sales, but you want to sell more to your customer base. How are you guys meeting weekly, monthly? Like, what do you guys do to evaluate? Shoot, we're sucking here. We need to really pick up the pace, or what is that thought process on really developing a customer within your system?
That's why I've always considered when you, especially with I mean, we've grown $100 million in the past 3 years.
Wow.
So that was a heavily accelerated, and that's because we had some branding issues, as all of LinkedIn and all that knows, and we had to go back to some cities we weren't in. And with that growth came a lot of, your structure starts getting all blown out. So to your question, when you think about a house, if you walk into a house, you walk in the front door. In my opinion, the problems start at the front door because the customer service is the front door of a company. They're getting hit with every single problem. So what I try to do is I get with customer service, and every Tuesday I talk to them about and me personally, I go sit in there for an hour. I want to know what customers had some friction points last week, because I've got my sales staff today is only like 6 people. Over the years, we've scaled that way down, and not through layout, just through retirements or people leaving the industry. It's we're selling a dying product. It's a very challenging industry for any salesperson in the produce industry. You're selling a dying product. It's tough. So I try to manage that at the customer service level, and I get them to be very transparent of which customers are having issues. I review logs each week. Who's calling in late, who's calling in under minimums, because I don't want to be a fee oriented company. So I need to make sure I have customers that are profitable for us and we're a good value to them. So I evaluate those reports to what you're saying about how do we evaluate that business and address those. And then when I see if there's an issue in a customer, I have another division that's like my customer retention, they kind of go out and see the problem customers each week. I've got 2 reps in that department, and that's all they do is just, there's always somebody pissed off.
Oh yeah.
It could be a chain account today. It could be, they'll even go see one of the other salesperson's accounts because it's just another face that shows, hey, you know what? These people care. That's all I want people to know is, hey, we're not perfect, but we care about your business. And 99% of our new business comes from that next person leaving that, hey, call up Brothers Produce. You know what? They care. They take care of you. Maybe they're not the cheapest, but they take care of you and they value your partnership.
Yeah, I think for any distribution company, regardless of what segment you're in, evaluating data, right? I think going back to uh, my upbringing in the produce business, typically you have a later cutoff time. You're delivering 6, 7 days a week, and COVID hits, right? And like you're trying to figure out what the hell you're going to do to cut cost. In order to maintain people and your services, and we went from 7 days a week to 5 day a week instead of 10 midnight cutoff, we went to 5 p.m. cutoff. And just so we could, reduce the amount of shifts that we had to have on, and the data, right, leads you to better decisions where we said, well, shoot, we actually just had a late cutoff just for the sake of it. If we look at the data, actually after 9 p.m., our phone calls and text messages, emails start to
They're way
decline.
down.
Like, so why are you employing, 2, 3 people in customer service when one, maybe you shift, hey, if you want an order, great, you got to put it online and it can go up to 11, but it's only online, right? Or EDI orders that come in. But if you know how many calls, how many texts, how many emails by hour, you can now make an informed decision. Some of the things when we go and see a distributor in customer service, oh, it starts to get real busy. At 11, it gets real busy. We'll define real busy. I mean, there's a lot of calls. Okay, well, what's a lot of calls? I don't know, but it's a lot. All right. Well, until you can really look at the numbers and start to digest, should we cut it back, and what is the yearly savings there? Ultimately, whether it's sales numbers or customer service, being able to provide yourself with data to make informed decisions will help you in the long run.
Yeah, and I just dropped down to a 6 o'clock cutoff, and had no issues doing it. And because of these reports, I saw what you saw. I saw them dwindling down. So then what we did is we addressed the ones that were chronic offenders, and we said, hey, are you? I send out hundreds of hot shots every day anyway. So why don't you just take your time placing that order? You don't serve lunch anyway. And you can't fix the past. You can only correct the future. So actually on our new customer forms, I go through again too, and people say I get my hands in crazy stuff, but I'm just an idea guy. So on our new customer forms now, I give them delivery windows now. And they're 3 and 4 hour windows, and I make them check which one they prefer. And then I put on there, please always have enough produce on your truck to get through the next day's lunch. You know, early the window guarantee. There is no guarantee on delivery times. And the most common questions that come through customer service every day is, "Where's my truck? This product's bad." And that one of the things we talked about when I do these seminars with customer service is just because somebody says it's bad means it's not good for them. It doesn't mean it's not good for somebody else. So that's one of the things we have to understand. It's not dripping and rotten out of the box. But
Yeah.
if we can vet that customer, again, we figure out why they're coming to us, what kind of problems they're having, make sure that we can be a better vendor to them, and then figure out how to place them in our box, because everybody wants a delivery from 7 to 10 because they all cook off the truck, or they do it, they do whatever off the truck. So we need to help me help you, and that's how we handle that issue, is through just it's all I'm a big survey guy. I'm about to roll out even more surveys because I believe personally that I can cut out one delivery day a week where we can go back to being closed a day, like we were when I was a kid. And I'm not doing that to save money. I want to do that to put some relief on our workforce because they're
Yep.
tired. This industry is tired. I mean, I'm tired. I don't get tired, and I'm tired.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, if you went to 5 day a week, regardless of the industry, it's so much easier to staff your driver team, your warehouse
Yes.
team. You're already as lean as you can be, right? Trying to get staffing on the truck or in the warehouse is really challenging. And, if you're a driver and you've had a 14-hour day and now it's like, oh, I need a hot shot on your way home, you're like, oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
It puts more and more of a burden. And, I think rules are there for a reason. And I say that from a standpoint of, if you and I wanted to go to a restaurant and they say they close at 9, we abide by the rules, right? If they're not open Monday and Tuesday, cool. We make a reservation for Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. They're very transparent. And often it's like, if you go and we book a flight and we want to fly to whatever, Philadelphia, and we're on the same flight and the flight says it leaves at 3:35 and we show up at 3:50, it was very clear. It's not a disrespect to us personally. It's just there are things there, and I think that's the side of the business that a lot of people that are in distribution, we laugh and giggle and just kind of smack our forehead about, but the consumer, which we love serving, we, it's really difficult to be on demand all the time, and moving and grooving. And you get that call on Friday from that top customer at 3:30 p.m. and you're like, oh shit. What is this person? Hey man, I hate to do this, but listen, I need like 6 cases of A, B, and C. We got a party going out, and you're like, okay, how am I going to make this happen? And you try to figure a way and find a way to do it because it's in your nature. But there's a lot of things that go into it. And I think when you have the data to make those decisions, and you have to take a stance at some point to say, look, I'm doing this for my employees and for you too, right? Because you can live off of 5 days a week. And certainly if you talk to a consultant, they'll say, no, we're going to go from 5 days to 2 days a week. Right. But
Yeah.
you can do things that you don't think you can normally do.
Well, and you said it, and you know that me, I'll say whatever I want. So I told a customer a couple weeks ago, they were all up in arms, and I said, I find it amazing that I can walk into your restaurant and maybe you've got a short staff of waiters and your service is lacking, but if I show up 5 minutes later, I'm short this, it's like I just told you your kids are ugly. This is where we have to, there's some give and some take. And like you said, it's how come they can be like this, or there's rules for some and not for For our industries, we're an emergency room service for the hospitality industry. And one of the reasons I've limited down my sales force and I've gone to more of a customer service thing is because salespeople create issues because they're going to stop. Oh, hey, you're coming by here. Can you drop me this, or this? And then you start just pampering everybody and you create this high level of service that you cannot meet. And, like I said, I'm trying to just perfect and limit service and offer because that's going to give me my best service and not keep going just crazy. I have to find a way there's a happy medium of everything.
Totally
Too
agree.
much of anything. Too much of anything is a bad. You can drink too much water. I mean, too much of anything is a bad thing. You're not going to give your wife flowers every single day because now the day you don't give her the flowers, she's going to be all pissed off.
Yeah,
So
and it
you
actually
always have to be better tomorrow than you were today.
and it may mean less too. The more that you do it, the more that you
Correct.
do it, and
And and
deliver.
and and again, back to the very first thing we talked about, you're only as good as your last delivery. And these customers have a mind that's all they remember is their last delivery. They don't remember when you sent them a truck when their cooler went out. They
Right,
forget
right.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. It's and who received it, right? The exec chef was out. Now it's a sous chef who's got a relationship with the other produce company,
Hmm.
or the GM. Like there's so many stipulations on why. I've got a really great friend in the booze business in Tennessee. I'm like, dude, if somebody wants to buy Buffalo Trace, there's one place to buy Buffalo Trace in the state of Tennessee. If you're a wholesale distributor or a restaurant, it's from you. If people want to buy lemons, man, oh gosh, the sky is the limit on who they want to buy lemons from in Tennessee or pick your state. And so we've got to be at the top of our game in customer service and why people use and oh, Brent said he's got a 6 o'clock cutoff. Shit, it's now 7. So guess who's getting my order? Fresh Point has a 9 o'clock, and
Yep.
now you lost the potential order, and it's a cyclical business. I've got a question as we wrap up, coming up on an hour, and it's been a great conversation. You are so active in your own business. You're an active father. You're an active husband, friend, and a councilman. Like, how do you find time to balance it? What inspires you? And what drives you?
One thing that drives me is just I want to make an impact and just always try to do better. And one of the things that helps me balance is I just posted a deal the other day, and it was a theory I saw about this 5 ball theory. You only got one rubber ball, and a lot of people are wrong where that rubber balls work. Work's always going to bounce back, but all over the years we've all let those glass balls fall.
Mm.
We've all not been there for one of our kids' events. We've all missed certain things. We've upset our wife, we've upset our parents, we've upset somebody because we put work first. And what I've learned over the years is, and I wasn't always good at this when I was young, as my kids have gotten older, what I've always learned is that no customer comes before my family. I've turned down so many big meetings, potential things I've lost because it wasn't worth putting my family for anymore. So all the things I do, that's one of the things that I've always done is put my family first because without my family I would not have anything. And it does, I mean, it's true. And I try to explain that to everybody, when you get bogged down and all that, just, walk away, take a breath. It's gonna be okay. Never take on too much, and you can always just balance it. There's always a balance, and you always got to look at what you're doing in the slate and figure out what that time's worth. Because if you say yes to that meeting with that customer, I mean, there's a reason I don't go out to the PMA events, and it's not because I don't like the PMA. It's because if I say yes to going and doing all that, I just said no to doing something with my family or to somebody else. I have to value what that yes commitment is going to be, and that's just how I go through every action I do in life is just realizing what that yes means.
Well, I appreciate you saying yes to this. One of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast was to one have authenticity within distribution. Like we have more similarities than we have differences across the country, right?
Mhm.
We share the same sentiments and we laugh about only being as good as our last delivery, all the things that distribution can bring. We're actually more similar than we are different. But we get stuck in our own bubble and we don't, it's really difficult or can be difficult to network with other industry leaders. And so, you know, shedding light on the realities, challenges, opportunities produce distribution can bring, or seafood, or whatever, right? Like, I think it's important to always be honing your craft if you want to be the next Brent, the next whoever in leadership at any organization in distribution. So I appreciate your insights and your time, and the quote that you started with by Dr. Seuss, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" I think, don't put yourself in a box. Be open to opportunity. Network. Put yourself out there. Learn to say no. No is an okay word in your vocabulary. Invest in yourself. Invest in your family. So I appreciate you and the time, and thanks for all the nuggets of information.
No, and I appreciate it. And one of the reasons I say yes to yours, and it's first of all, I really enjoyed our conversation when we first met. But the other thing I knew, and I say no to a lot of podcasts, a lot of reasons I say no is because I can't be myself. I can't, you'll never get who I am if I can't be myself and if I'm protected on not being able to talk about the realities of this industry and the truth, and that it's, again, it's not easy. It's there is challenges, there is problems, but I like that we can have that conversation and we can talk about some of these challenges without having to protect this sponsor here and this sponsor there. We see my social media, but I'm not a toxic person. I'm just somebody that is out there. I'm an advocate for making an impact on this industry. I mean, when this industry's over, I want them to say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I learned that it's okay to speak up and say something because maybe somebody's going to hear it, and maybe other people are feeling the same way. And now maybe we can bring about change in something because I was thinking this, but I was afraid to say it because people were going to be mad at me or I was going to lose this business when everybody else was feeling that way."
No, I want this to be an outlet. Like, if I were to say, "Hey,
Joe
man,
Rogan.
go grab a cup of coffee, or go grab a cocktail," like, this is a place to vent and talk about the realities, and understand, like, oh shit, maybe I'm not the only person that's feeling this way about this particular problem. And do you guys buy from Bandwagon, or have you ever bought from Bandwagon out in LA?
I used to do it. That's Dennis,
Yeah,
right?
Dennis.
I I used to be the specialty buyer in probably 2000, early 2000s. I was a specialty buyer, and I dealt with Dennis back then. And I don't know if we still do or not. I'd have to talk to my buying team.
Well, I went out to LA back in, oh gosh, probably maybe mid June. Dennis is someone that I've known. We bought a lot from him in the specialty segment. And, you think finger limes and all the fun little things that are out there in produce, the ability to kind of build a palette and not have to make a commitment to all this different stuff. But his office in LA, he's got his conference room, and it was like this kind of, and Dennis, you should know, it's a dingy office, like this brick. I felt like it was an interrogation room, but in that moment, it was a plastic card table, two plastic folding chairs, carpet from like the 70s, and just brick wall, nothing on the walls, and like shitty lighting. And we're sitting there having a conversation, and so much fun, authentic, just shooting the shit. And I'm like, man, this is a cool conversation, and in some sense, it's the interrogation room. It's just like a reality room. I don't even know, but that's the aspiration for what I'm trying to build. And your willingness to come on and share, who you are authentically, hopefully continues to build on who we bring on as guests, and show the future, procurement, sales leaders, leadership, whoever's in distribution that's wanting to know how can you be better, what nuggets are there. Hopefully we can be that source to you.
And to your point, it's so you can't see behind me, but I've got wrestling action figures. I've got a Pee Wee Herman doll. I've got all these toys. I had a wrestling ring in the middle of this table in my office, and when people come in my office, that's kind of the atmosphere I want them to have. I mean, that was one of the things that Patrick saw when he was over here. Like, you're not going to see I can show up in a suit and a tie, or I can show up in a tracksuit, or I wear sweatshirts a lot because there's a way you can make people feel in a comfortability with them where you're approachable and it's a fun atmosphere and you still get the same message along. And the delivery and the message are just as important. And when people walk in this door, I love watching them. They'll play with the toys and all that, and it's just because now it's like the veil's been lifted and everybody can be themselves, and there's not a sense of just people being nervous or whatever it is. And I think it's important in life to feel comfortable. Everybody wants a sense of belonging.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for joining us for this discussion with Brent Erenwert of Brothers Produce out of Houston, Texas. We appreciate your time. Hope you learned something. Brent, you and your team have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the livestock show and rodeo.